The stars looked different now that humanity could touch them. Commander Do-hyun Park stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise, watching the endless dark stretch before him. 3 years ago, Earth had joined the Galactic Coalition. 3 years ago, humans had learned they were not alone. Now his ship sailed through space that no human had ever seen. "Commander, we're approaching the uncharted system," said Taewon Kim from the engineering station. The young man's fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. "All systems running smooth," Do-hyun nodded. The mission was simple. Map new systems, take samples, learn what they could. The Coalition had given humanity this task because it was safe and boring. The elder races had already explored the interesting parts of the galaxy. They left the scraps for the newcomers. Dr. Minji Choi looked up from her science station. Her dark eyes were bright with excitement. 3 planets in the habitable zone. No life signs, but the second planet has interesting mineral deposits. "Take us closer," Do-hyun said. The ship glided forward. Space travel had become routine so quickly. 6 months ago, this same crew had left Earth for the first time. Now jumping between stars felt as normal as breathing. The Coalition's technology had given humanity the galaxy, but the elder races still treated humans like children playing with adult toys. "Wait." Minji's voice cut through the quiet bridge. "I'm picking up something." "It's not natural." Everyone turned to look at her. Taewon pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. There in the darkness between planets was a signal. Weak, stuttering, but definitely artificial. "Could be a probe," Taewon said. "Or maybe an old satellite." "No," Minji shook her head. "The pattern is wrong." "That's a distress call." Do-hyun felt his heart beat faster. "Can you identify the source?" "Working on it." Minji's fingers flew across her console. "Got it, it's a ship." Coalition design. Valari markings. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew about the Valari. They were one of the oldest races in the galaxy. They kept the records. They remembered the history of thousands of species across millions of years. If the Valari were in trouble, it was serious. "Get me a visual," Do-hyun ordered. The screen flickered. A ship appeared, floating dead in space. It was beautiful even in its damaged state. Valari ships always looked like art. This one was shaped like a flower with petals of metal that usually glowed with soft light. Now half the petals were torn away. The ship was dying. "Life signs?" Do-hyun asked. 3, very weak. Minji's voice was tight. "Commander, there's something else. The ship is under attack." "What? By who?" Taewon pulled up another image. Surrounding the Valari ship were dozens of small objects. They looked ancient, their metal surfaces pitted and scarred by time. But they were very much active. "Automated defense systems," Taewon said. "Probably from whatever civilization used to live here. The Valari ship must have triggered them by accident." "Can we contact the Valari?" Minji tried. Static filled the bridge. Then through the noise, a voice came through. It was soft and musical, the way Valari always sounded. But this voice was filled with pain. "This is Elder Curator Sentha of the Valari Archive Ship Memory of Dawn. Our systems are failing. We have maybe 1 hour before life support collapses. If anyone can hear this, please help us." Do-hyun felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. The safe choice was obvious. Call for coalition help. Wait for a proper rescue ship. Follow protocol. That's what the elder races would do. That's what humanity was supposed to learn. But those people would be dead in an hour. "Taewon, can we reach them?" Do-hyun asked. "The defense systems will attack us too," Taewon said. He was already running calculations. Do-hyun could see it in his eyes. The young engineer was trying to find a way. "There are too many. Our shields won't hold long enough." "What if we don't fight them?" Minji said. Everyone looked at her. She smiled, but it was a nervous smile. "These systems are ancient, right? Millions of years old. They're defending against invasion, against attack. What if we don't attack?" "They'll still shoot at us," Taewon said. "Maybe, but what if we're too small to worry about?" "Too insignificant?" Do-hyun understood immediately. "You want us to go in with a shuttle. Something small that won't trigger their main weapons." "Exactly. We send in a rescue shuttle. Move fast, grab the Valari. Get out before the systems realize we're a threat." It was crazy. It violated every safety protocol the Coalition had taught them. If it went wrong, they would all die. Do-hyun should say no. He should be responsible. He should follow the rules, but rules didn't save lives. People did. "Taewon, prep shuttle 2. Load it with extra shield generators. Minji, you're with me. We're going in. Commander, I should go, Taewon said. If something goes wrong with the shuttle systems, you'll need an engineer. And if something goes wrong with this ship, the crew will need their engineer here. You're staying. That's an order. Taewon's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 15 minutes later, Dohyun and Minji were strapped into the shuttle. It was tiny compared to the Horizon's promise. Just a small box with engines and basic shields. Behind them, magnetic clamps held 3 emergency rescue pods ready to receive the Valari. This is insane, Minji said, but she was smiling. Completely, Dohyun agreed. He fired the engines, the shuttle shot forward. Immediately, the ancient defense systems noticed. Red lights flashed across Dohyun's console. Targeting locks. Weapons powering up. He pushed the engines harder. They see us, Minji said. They see us, but are we worth shooting? Energy beams lanced through space, but they passed behind the shuttle. The defense systems were firing, but not with their full power. Minji had been right. To machines millions of years old, designed to destroy warships, their tiny shuttle was barely worth noticing. Dohyun flew like he'd never flown before. He'd been a pilot in Earth's Air Force before joining the Coalition program. Those skills came back now. He jinked left, rolled right, dropped down, and came up at an angle that made Minji gasp. The ancient weapons tracked them, fired, missed. The shuttle's shields flickered but held. Then they were through. The Valari ship loomed ahead. Up close, the damage was worse than Dohyun had thought. Atmosphere was venting from a dozen holes. The beautiful metal petals were torn and twisted. Docking port is on the starboard side, Minji said. If it's still intact. It was. Barely. Dohyun brought the shuttle in with gentle precision. Metal scraped against metal. Clamps engaged. Seals hissed shut. We're in, Minji said. But we have maybe 10 minutes before those defense systems decide we're worth their full attention. They opened the hatch. The Valari ship's interior was like nothing human-made. Everything curved and flowed like water frozen in time. Emergency lights cast strange shadows. And there, floating in the zero gravity, were 3 Valari. They were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like pearl. Their forearms hung limp. Their large eyes were closed, but sensors showed they were alive. Dohyun and Minji worked fast. They loaded each Valari into a rescue pod. The pods would keep them stable, safe, alive. The last one was Elder Sentha. Her eyes flickered open as they sealed her pod. She looked at Dohyun. Her mouth moved. "Thank you," she whispered. Then they were moving again. Back to the shuttle. Seals disengaging. Engines firing. The defense systems were waiting. This time they were ready. This time the shuttle had been noticed. Energy beams tore through space. Dohyun flew through them like a dancer through rain. Shields flashed. Alarms screamed. But the shuttle was fast and small and desperate. They shot past the defense perimeter. The Horizon's promise grabbed them with a tractor beam and pulled them home. On the bridge, as medical teams rushed to help the Valari, Dohyun felt his hands shaking. They'd done it. They'd saved 3 lives, 3 members of the galaxy's oldest species, and all it had taken was ignoring orders, risking their ship and being just a little bit crazy. Ambassador Heejin Lee's face appeared on the screen minutes later. She looked tired. "Commander Park, I've just received word that you conducted an unauthorized rescue operation." "Yes, Ambassador. The Coalition is very upset. You violated protocol. You risked a valuable ship. You could have died." "Yes, Ambassador." There was a long pause. Then Heejin smiled. It was small, but it was real. "You also saved 3 Valari lives. Elder Sentha is apparently very important. She's thanking us personally." "Well done, Commander." The screen went dark. Dohyun looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy turned. Somewhere out there, the elder races followed their ancient rules. But today, humanity had shown them something different. Today, humanity had chosen people over protocol. It was a small moment, a tiny rescue that would barely make the news. But sometimes small moments change everything. 6 months had passed since the rescue. The Horizon's promise continued its mission, mapping systems and taking samples. The galaxy had barely noticed what they'd done. A few news reports. A commendation from Earth, nothing more. The elder races were too busy with their own affairs to care about one human ship saving 3 Valari. But Elder Curator Sentha had noticed. Commander Dohyun Park received the message during breakfast. It came through official Coalition channels, marked with Valari symbols that shimmered on the screen. Elder Sentha requests a meeting with Commander Park and his crew. Ambassador Heejin Lee said from the communication screen. She's been studying humanity since you saved her. Apparently she finds us interesting. That's good, right? Do-hyun asked. Heejin's face was serious. I don't know. The Valari don't waste time on things that don't matter. If she's interested in us, there's a reason. 3 days later, Elder Sentha arrived on the Horizon's Promise. She moved through the corridors like flowing water, her forearms gesturing as she spoke. Her pearl-like skin caught the light and threw it back in soft colors. Behind her walked 2 other Valari, carrying cases filled with data storage devices. In the ship's conference room, Sentha sat across from Do-hyun, Minji, and Taewon. The Valari elder looked at each of them with eyes that seemed to see through time itself. You saved my life, Sentha said. Her voice was like music. You risked everything for 3 strangers. This is not common in the galaxy. I wanted to understand why. It was the right thing to do, Do-hyun said simply. But you violated orders. You risked your ship. You could have died. Why? Minji leaned forward. Because waiting for proper help would have taken too long. You would have been dead. Many species would accept that loss. 3 lives are not worth risking a valuable ship and crew. To us they are, Taewon said quietly. Every life matters. Sentha was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Yes, I have studied your history. Your species values individual life in ways that elder races have forgotten. You fight wars to save single people. You spend vast resources to rescue those who are lost. Even when it makes no logical sense, is that wrong? Do-hyun asked. No, it is different. And difference is valuable. Sentha gestured to her assistants. They began unpacking the cases. Data crystals filled the table, each one glowing with stored information. I have been studying more than your history. I have been studying all history. The Valari are the galaxy's record keepers. We remember everything that has happened across 3 million years. That's a long time, Minji said. It is. And in that time, we have learned to see patterns. Events that repeat. Cycles that turn like wheels. Sentha picked up one of the data crystals. It glowed red in her hand. There is a pattern I discovered while recovering from my injuries. A pattern that terrifies me. The room became very quiet. Every 50,000 years something happens, Sentha continued. Civilizations vanish. Entire regions of the galaxy go silent. Life disappears. Then, after some time passes, new species evolve and the galaxy fills with life again. It has happened at least 60 times in recorded history. Do-hyun felt cold. What causes it? We don't know. The records from those times are fragmentary. Species don't tend to keep good records while they're dying. But there are hints, mentions of something that comes from beyond the galaxy, something that consumes. When was the last time this happened? Taewon asked. His voice was steady, but Do-hyun could see fear in his eyes. 49,847 years ago. Minji did the math instantly. That means it's due to return within a few generations. Perhaps sooner. Sentha placed the crystal on the table. I brought this information to the Coalition Council. They dismissed it. High Arbiter Kelran said I was seeing patterns in random noise. He said the Valari had become too obsessed with the past to think clearly about the present. But you don't think it's random, Do-hyun said. I know it is not random. The pattern is too consistent, too precise. Sentha looked at each of them again, but the elder races will not listen. They are comfortable. They have been powerful for so long that they cannot imagine a threat they cannot handle. They think I am a foolish old Valari seeing monsters in shadows. Why tell us? Minji asked. We're the newest species. The youngest. No one listens to us either. Sentha smiled. It was a sad smile. Because you saved 3 lives when logic said you should not. Because you see things differently. Because sometimes fresh eyes see what old eyes miss. She pushed the data crystals toward them. Will you help me? Will you look at this evidence with your human perspective and tell me if I'm wrong? Do-hyun looked at his crew. Minji was already reaching for the crystals, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. Taewon nodded slowly. They were in. Yes, Do-hyun said. We'll help. The next 3 months were intense. Minji and Taewon worked with Sentha's team, poring through ancient records. They found mentions in 100 dead languages, references to the swarm that eats stars, descriptions of darkness that consumes light, stories of the hunger from beyond. Do-hyun reported their findings to Ambassador Heejin. She brought them to the Coalition. High Arbiter Kelron, leader of a species that had ruled space for 10,000 years, laughed. Humans and Valari, he said. The newest species and the most superstitious. Of course you would see threats everywhere. But Sentha would not be dismissed. She called in favors from other Valari. She showed the data to scientists from a dozen species. Slowly, reluctantly, some began to listen. Then the observation post at the galaxy's edge detected something. It came through the void between galaxies. At first it was just strange readings. Energy signatures that didn't match anything in coalition databases. Then the sensors got better images. The swarm was massive. Billions of individual entities moving together like a single organism. Each one was small, maybe the size of a shuttle. But together they stretched across light years of space. And they were moving toward the galaxy. Moving toward life. The Coalition Council met in emergency session. High Arbiter Kelron stood before them, his pride shattered. It appears Elder Sentha and the humans were correct. We face an extinction-level threat. We are calling them the Devourers. Sentha spoke next. According to our estimates, the Devourers will reach the outer colonies in 18 months. We must prepare. Prepare how? Asked a representative from one of the warrior species. We don't even know what they are. Then we must learn, Sentha said. She turned to look directly at where Doyun, Minji, and Taewon sat in the observers section. I propose a joint research mission. Valari historians and human scientists working together. We need fresh thinking combined with ancient knowledge. The proposal passed. Barely. Most of the elder races still didn't trust humanity's judgment, but they trusted Sentha, and she trusted the humans. A week later, Doyun found himself leading a combined task force. His ship had been upgraded with the best technology the Coalition could provide. Valari historians worked beside human scientists. Together they studied everything they could find about the Devourers. It was Minji who made the breakthrough. She was working late one night, comparing ancient records with modern sensor data. Taewon brought her coffee and found her staring at her screen with wide eyes. What is it? He asked. I know what they are, Minji whispered. Or at least I know what they do. She pulled up images. Look at this. Every time the Devourers appear, they consume biological matter. All of it. They break it down at the molecular level and absorb it, but they don't touch anything else. Metal, rock, energy, those things remain. Only life is taken. Why? Because they're eating. The Devourers are a swarm intelligence, but each individual is biological too. They need food. And they've learned to travel between galaxies hunting for the richest feeding grounds. Minji looked sick. We're not facing an army. We're facing an infestation. A plague of locusts on a galactic scale. Taewon immediately understood the implications. If they consume biological matter at the molecular level, normal weapons won't work well. We need something that disrupts their ability to function, something that attacks their biology. They worked through the night. By morning, they had a theory. The Devourers used quantum entanglement to coordinate their swarm behavior. If that entanglement could be disrupted, each individual would become confused, vulnerable. They brought their findings to Sentha and the Coalition Council. This time everyone listened. Can we build weapons that create this disruption? High Arbiter Kelron asked. Yes, Taewon said. But it requires technology that's new. Quantum resonance generators. We developed them on Earth only 5 years ago for communication systems. The elder races never needed this technology because they had better methods. There was silence in the council chamber. Then Kelron spoke, his voice heavy. Then humanity must teach us. We need these weapons. All of us. In that moment, everything changed. The newest species in the galaxy, the ones who had been treated like children, were suddenly teachers. Earth's factories began working day and night, producing weapons and sending the blueprints to every coalition world. And in the quiet moments, Sentha would visit Do-hyun on his ship. You saved 3 lives 6 months ago, she would say. Now you're trying to save trillions. You humans are remarkable. We're just doing what we can, Do-hyun would reply. The galaxy prepared for war. Ancient defense stations that had been dormant for thousands of years came back online. Fleets assembled from every corner of known space. Species that had barely spoken to each other for centuries now worked side by side, all because the Devourers were coming. Admiral Jiwon's Song stood on the bridge of the Unity, Earth's newest and largest warship. Around her, hundreds of other ships floated in formation. Some were massive dreadnoughts from elder races, so large they could swallow Earth's moon. Others were sleek fighters, fast and deadly. And scattered among them were human vessels, small compared to most, but armed with the new quantum resonance weapons. "Admiral, the Coalition Command wants a status report," said her communications officer. Jiwan nodded. She was still getting used to the title. 6 months ago, she'd been a captain. Then humanity had shared its weapon designs with the galaxy, and suddenly humans were valuable. Earth had promoted every qualified officer it had. They needed leaders for the growing fleet. "Tell them we're ready," Jiwan said. "All human battle groups are in position." On the viewing screen, she could see the edge of the galaxy. Beyond that border was empty void. And somewhere in that void, the Devourers were coming. They would arrive within weeks now. Maybe days. Captain Young Ho Han guided his ship, the Starfire, into formation beside the Unity. He was young, only 25, but he'd proven himself in the simulation battles the Coalition had been running. His ship was small, just a destroyer, but it carried enough quantum weapons to hurt the Devourers badly. "This is really happening," Young Ho said to his crew. "We're about to fight for the entire galaxy." His tactical officer, a woman named Nari, checked her displays. "The elder races have been preparing for this their whole civilization. They have battle plans that are 10,000 years old. And we have battle plans that are 3 months old," Young Ho said with a slight smile. "I wonder which will work better." Back on Earth, Dr. Sun Hee Kang worked in a laboratory that never slept. She'd been awake for 30 hours straight, running tests on the quantum resonance generators. The weapons worked, but they could be better, faster, more efficient. Every improvement meant more lives saved. "Dr. Kang, you need to rest," her assistant said. "I'll rest when this is over," Sun Hee replied. Her eyes were red with exhaustion, but her hands were steady as she adjusted the calibration settings. "How many weapons have we produced?" 70,000 generators. The Coalition has installed them on ships across the fleet. It's not enough. We need more. "Doctor, we're producing them as fast as possible. Earth's entire industrial capacity is focused on this." Sun Hee knew that. She knew that millions of people were working day and night, but it still felt like too little. The Devourers numbered in the billions. 70,000 weapons seemed like nothing against that. High above Earth's orbit, Commander Do-Yun Park supervised the training exercises. His ship, the Horizon's Promise, had become a mobile classroom. Pilots from dozens of species came to learn human tactics. They practiced the maneuvers that had saved the Volari. They learned to think like humans, fast, creative, willing to take risks. "You want us to fly through that?" asked a pilot from a species that looked like giant beetles. "That's suicide." "It looks like suicide," Do-Hyun agreed. "But if you move fast enough, stay small enough, you can get through before they react. We proved it works. Once, you did it once. That doesn't mean it will work in a real battle." "You're right, but it's better than sitting still and being a target." Do-Hyun pulled up a tactical display. "Look, the elder races have always fought with overwhelming force. Big ships, heavy weapons, direct confrontation. The Devourers have adapted to that over millions of years, but they've never faced humanity before. They don't know our tricks." The beetle-like pilot considered this. Then he nodded. "Show me again." Meanwhile, Elder Sentha worked with the Coalition's Strategic Command. She had become something unexpected, a military advisor. For 3 million years, the Volari had been historians and record keepers. They didn't fight, but Sentha understood that history held lessons for the present. "The Devourers have attacked 60 times before," she told the assembled commanders. Each time, the younger races tried to fight them with standard military tactics. Each time, those races were consumed. The only species that survived were those who changed their approach. Those who adapted. High Arbiter Kelran listened carefully. His pride had been wounded by being wrong about the threat, but he was wise enough to learn from his mistakes. "What do you suggest?" "I suggest we listen to humanity." They think differently. They see war as something fluid, changing, creative, not as a set of rules to follow. Admiral Jiwan Song was called to the command center. There, surrounded by military leaders from across the galaxy, she presented humanity's strategy. It was bold. Some would say reckless. "The elder races plan to meet the Devourers at the galaxy's edge," Jiwan said. "Form a defensive line and hold it. But the Devourers outnumber us 100 to 1. A defensive line will be overwhelmed." "Then what do you propose?" Kelran asked. Jiwan activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy's edge and the space beyond. "We fall back. We conduct a fighting retreat. We draw the Devourers after us, making them chase us into a kill zone of our choosing. There we can concentrate our quantum weapons and hit them all at once. The room erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. Retreat? That's cowardice. We abandon our colonies? The elder races do not run. Kelrin raised his hand for silence. When the room quieted, he looked at Jiwan. You ask us to give up territory, to let the Devourers into the galaxy. Colonies will be consumed while we retreat. Yes, Jiwan said quietly. Some will die. But if we stand and fight at the edge, everyone will die. A tactical retreat gives us a chance to win. The Council will never approve this, said another commander. It goes against everything we believe. Sentha stood. Her voice carried across the room. 60 times the younger races stood their ground. 60 times they were destroyed. Perhaps it is time to try something different. The debate lasted for hours. In the end, the decision was made. The main fleet would establish a defensive line at the galaxy's edge. They would fight traditionally, using the elder race's proven tactics, but a reserve force would be held back, a force composed primarily of human ships. If the defensive line failed, the reserve would implement the retreat strategy. It was a compromise. Neither side was happy, but both could accept it. Admiral Jiwan was given command of the reserve force. When she returned to the Unity, her officers could see the weight on her shoulders. They don't trust us, said her tactical officer. Can you blame them? Jiwan replied. We're asking them to abandon everything their civilizations have believed for thousands of years. But you believe we're right. I believe we have to try. Because if we do what's always been done, we'll get what's always been gotten, and what's always been gotten is extinction. Captain Young Ho Han received his orders. His ship would be part of the reserve force. When he told his crew, they reacted with mixed emotions. Relief that they wouldn't be in the first wave. Guilt that others would fight while they waited. Young Ho understood both feelings. We have the hardest job, he told them. We have to be ready to save everyone if the first defense fails. That means we carry the weight of hope. On Earth, Dr. Sun Hee Kang finally achieved the breakthrough she'd been seeking. The new generators could produce quantum disruption fields 3 times larger than before. One weapon could now do the work of 3. She immediately sent the designs to every ship in the fleet. Taewon Kim worked day and night installing the new systems. Minji Choi calculated the best formations for maximum effect. Commander Do-hyun trained pilots until they moved like extensions of their ships. Every human in the fleet gave everything they had, and still it didn't feel like enough. The Devourers arrived on a Tuesday. The observation post detected them first. A swarm so vast it blotted out the stars, billions of individual entities moving as one. They came through the void like a wave of darkness, consuming everything in their path. The coalition fleet moved into position. Massive dreadnoughts formed the front line. Behind them, carriers launched fighter wings. Energy shields flickered to life, creating a wall of force across the galaxy's edge. Admiral Jiwan watched from the reserve position, 100 light-years behind the main fleet. Her ships waited, engines idling, weapons charged. This is it, she said to her crew. Everything we've prepared for. Everything we've feared. It all comes down to what happens next. The Devourers hit the defensive line like a hammer striking glass. The first wave was repulsed. Coalition weapons tore through the swarm. Quantum resonance generators disrupted thousands of Devourers, sending them spinning into the void. The elder races cheered. Their tactics were working. Then the second wave came. And the third. And the 10th. The Devourers kept coming. They learned from each attack. They adapted. They changed their formations, their approaches, their behavior. The defensive line held for 3 days. Then it began to crack. Ships went dark as the Devourers overwhelmed their shields. Entire squadrons were consumed. Distress calls filled every communication channel. The elder races fought with courage and skill, but they were being pushed back. High Arbiter Kelrin's voice came through on every ship in the fleet. The retreat was not running away. It was a dance with death, and humanity was teaching the galaxy how to move. Admiral Jiwan Song's voice stayed calm as chaos erupted around her fleet. Wing 7, break right and fire. Wing 3, cover their retreat. Keep them following us. Keep them angry. The human ships moved like schools of fish darting in and out of the Devourer swarm. They fired their quantum weapons, disrupted clusters of the enemy, then pulled back before the swarm could respond. Behind them, the massive coalition dreadnoughts followed, providing covering fire with their conventional weapons. Captain Young-Ho Han gritted his teeth as his ship, the Starfire, spun through a cloud of devourers. His tactical officer, Nari, called out targets faster than the weapons could fire. They destroyed hundreds, but thousands more filled the gaps. "They're adapting to our weapon frequencies," Nari shouted. "We need to randomize the quantum signatures or they'll learn to resist." "Do it," Young-Ho ordered. His hands flew across the controls as he guided the ship through a gap that looked impossible. Metal screamed. Shields flared. But they made it through. Behind them, a devourer mass tried to follow. The quantum disruption field activated, and the pursuers scattered like leaves in wind. The fighting retreat lasted for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of constant battle. 2 weeks where no one slept more than a few hours at a time. Ships rotated through the line, fighting until their weapons overheated, then falling back while others took their place. Commander Do-hyun Park coordinated the smaller vessels. His Horizon's promise was everywhere, patching holes in the formation, rescuing damaged ships, carrying supplies to vessels that had exhausted their ammunition. He barely recognized himself in the mirror anymore. He'd lost weight. His eyes were hollow, but he kept moving, kept fighting. "Sir, we've lost contact with Wing 12, his communications officer reported. Do-hyun checked the tactical display. Wing 12 had been defending a Volari colony ship. The colony ship was still broadcasting, but the defense wing had gone silent. That meant they were gone. 20 ships, 800 people dead. "Send Wing 15 to cover the colony ship," Do-hyun ordered. His voice didn't shake. It couldn't. If he showed weakness, fear would spread through the fleet, but at night, when he was alone in his quarters for the few minutes he allowed himself, Do-hyun wept for the dead. On Earth, Dr. Sun-hee Kang watched the battle reports with growing horror. The quantum weapons were working, but not well enough. The devourers were learning too fast. Every day, the weapons became slightly less effective. Every day, more ships were lost. She pushed her team harder. They worked until they collapsed. Then they woke up and worked more. Sleep was a luxury. Rest was impossible. Every minute they wasted was another life lost in the void. "I've got something," said her assistant after 72 straight hours in the laboratory. "If we pulse the quantum field instead of maintaining it constant, the devourers can't adapt as quickly." Sun-hee ran the calculations. "It worked. It would work. Send it to the fleet immediately. Every second counts." The upgrade reached the ships just as the coalition fleet was being pushed toward the kill zone. It was a region of space surrounded by ancient stellar remnants, dead stars that had collapsed into neutron stars and black holes. The gravity wells were treacherous, the radiation was lethal, but it was the perfect trap. Once the devourers entered, there would be no easy escape. Admiral Ji-won prepared her fleet for the final stand. "All ships, this is it. When I give the order, every vessel fires everything they have. Hold nothing back. We either win here or we lose everything." High Arbiter Kelrin's dreadnought was damaged. Half his crew was dead. His ship limped alongside the human vessels, one massive engine flickering, but his voice was strong when he spoke. "I was wrong about humanity," he broadcast to the entire fleet. "I thought you were young and foolish. I thought your tactics were reckless. I was wrong. You have shown us how to fight. You have shown us how to hope. Whatever happens next, the galaxy owes you a debt it can never repay. Save the speeches for when we win," Ji-won replied, but she was smiling. Just a little. The devourers chased them into the kill zone, billions of them driven by hunger, by the need to consume. They followed the coalition fleet into the trap without hesitation. They had never known defeat. They had consumed 60 galaxies before this. Why should this time be different? The coalition fleet reached the center of the kill zone. Every ship turned. Every weapon pointed at the oncoming swarm. "Now!" Ji-won shouted. 70,000 quantum resonance weapons fired simultaneously. The space between stars turned white with energy. The pulsing fields overlapped, creating cascading waves of disruption that tore through the devourer swarm. They died in the billions. The quantum pulses shredded their coordination. Individual devourers spun wildly, unable to find the swarm mind that had guided them. They crashed into each other, into the radiation fields, into the gravity wells of the dead stars. The coalition fleet poured fire into the chaos. Conventional weapons joined the quantum barrage. The kill zone became a hell of energy and destruction. But there were so many devourers. For every billion that died, another billion pressed forward. They learned. They adapted. They changed their approach. A mass of devourers broke through the left flank. They swarmed a coalition carrier, consuming it in seconds. Then another ship. And another. "We can't hold them," someone shouted over the communications network. "There are too many." Captain Young-Ho Han saw what needed to be done. The breakthrough was aimed at a Valari colony ship. The ship carried 40,000 civilians, families, children. They were defenseless, Nari. Young-Ho said quietly. "Get to the escape pods, sir." "That's an order. Everyone to the pods, now," Nari understood. She opened her mouth to argue, to refuse. But she saw the look in her captain's eyes. He'd already made his decision. "It's been an honor, Captain," she said. "The honor was mine." The crew evacuated. Young-Ho watched them go on the monitors. When the last pod had launched, he locked the bridge controls. Then he aimed the Starfire at the Devourer breakthrough and pushed the engines to maximum. His ship accelerated. Faster. Faster. The Devourers noticed too late. The Starfire hit their formation like a spear. Young-Ho armed every weapon on board and set them to overload. "For Earth," he said. "For the galaxy," the ship exploded. The quantum weapons overloaded in a chain reaction that created a disruption field unlike anything the Devourers had encountered. The breakthrough was destroyed. The Valari colony ship escaped. Admiral Jiwan watched it happen. She felt something break inside her chest. But there was no time to grieve. Not yet. "All ships with overload capability prepare for sacrifice runs," she ordered. Her voice was steady. It had to be. "We need volunteers," every human ship responded. "Every single one. We can't ask this," Jiwan said. "I can't." "You're not asking, Admiral," came a voice. It was another captain, a woman named Unji commanding a destroyer. "We're offering. We're human. This is what we do." One by one, human ships made suicide runs into the Devourer swarm. Each explosion created massive disruption fields. Each sacrifice opened gaps in the enemy formation. The elder races watched in horror and awe as humanity threw itself into death to save others. Commander Do-Hyun Park knew his turn was coming. The Horizon's promise was damaged. Life support was failing. His crew was exhausted beyond measure. But they could make one more run. "One more sacrifice, sir? The entire fleet is broadcasting to us," his communications officer said. They're saying goodbye." Thousands of voices filled the speakers. Valari singing their death songs for human heroes. Warriors from 100 species calling out human names with respect. Children on colony ships crying because they understood what was happening. Do-Hyun felt tears on his face, but he smiled. Because they had done it. Humanity had shown the galaxy what really mattered. "Attention, all human vessels," Admiral Jiwan's voice cut through. "Hold your positions. Do not make sacrifice runs unless absolutely necessary. The elder races are sending reinforcements." Do-Hyun looked at his tactical display. Ships were emerging from quantum tunnels, fresh coalition vessels. Thousands of them. They'd been held in reserve, but now they poured into the kill zone. High Arbiter Kelrin's voice boomed across all channels. "Humanity has shown us the way. They have paid the price. Now it is our turn. All coalition forces attack. For the humans who died for us. For the galaxy." The reinforcements hit the Devourer swarm from every angle. Quantum weapons joined with conventional fire. The trap was complete. The Devourers were surrounded, disrupted, destroyed. It took 6 more hours. 6 hours of constant fighting, but slowly, inevitably, the swarm was broken. The Devourers died or fled back into the void between galaxies. When the last enemy was destroyed, silence fell across the fleet. Then someone started broadcasting a human name. Then another, and another. Within minutes, every ship in the coalition fleet was broadcasting the names of the fallen humans. 2,300,000 names, each one spoken with reverence. Admiral Jiwan Song sat in her damaged bridge and listened to the names. So many names, so many dead, but they had won. The galaxy had survived. She thought of Captain Young-Ho Han, of the thousands of others who had given everything. She thought of how humanity had been the youngest species, the least respected, the most overlooked. Not anymore. 1 year after the battle, the galaxy gathered to remember. The memorial site floated in the void where the kill zone had been. The dead stars still orbited nearby, but now they were surrounded by something new. Every species that had fought in the battle, contributed to the structure. It was enormous, visible from light years away, built from materials donated by 4,000 civilizations. At its center was a crystal sphere, perfectly clear, containing the names of every being who had died fighting the Devourers. Human names were there, but so were Valari names and names from species humanity had never even met. 200 million names preserved forever in unbreakable crystal. Ambassador Heejin Lee stood with Commander Do-hyun Park, looking at the memorial through the viewport of their ship. Do-hyun had recovered from his injuries, but he moved slower now. His hair had started turning gray, though he was only 35. War did that to people? They're calling it the Monument of Unity, Heejin said quietly, because that's what the battle did. It united every species in ways nothing else could. It cost 200 million lives to achieve unity, Do-hyun replied. His voice was flat. I'm not sure that's a fair trade. No, but it's the trade that was made. Heejin placed a hand on his shoulder, and because of it trillions survived. That has to mean something. Around the memorial, thousands of ships gathered. Representatives from every coalition species had come. Some traveled for months to be here. This wasn't just a memorial service. It was something more. Elder Sentha's shuttle docked with the human ship. She walked onto the bridge, moving slowly. She was old even by Valari standards, and the battle had aged her further. But her eyes were still bright, still sharp. Commander Park, she said, bowing in the human fashion she'd learned. It is time. The ceremony began with silence. For 10 minutes, every ship in the fleet went dark and quiet. 200 million heartbeats of silence for 200 million dead. Then High Arbiter Kelrun spoke. His voice was broadcast to every ship, every world, every outpost in the galaxy. We gather to remember. We gather to honor. We gather to ensure that what happened here is never forgotten. Other speakers followed. Leaders from 100 species, veterans of the battle, survivors. Each one told stories of sacrifice, of courage, of the day the galaxy almost died. But then Elder Sentha stepped forward. What she said next would change everything. The Valari are the memory keepers, Sentha began. For 3 million years we have recorded history. We have stored the stories of every species, every civilization, every great event. We do this so that the past is never lost, she paused. Behind her, a holographic display activated, showing the eternal archive, the Valari's greatest treasure. It was a repository of knowledge so vast that no single being could comprehend it all. There is a special section of the archive, Sentha continued, a place where we record only the most significant events, only the moments that define entire eras. In 3 million years, only 600 events have been deemed worthy of this honor. The crowd was silent. Everyone knew where this was going. Today we add the 601st entry, the battle against the Devourers, the sacrifice of the coalition fleet, and especially the sacrifice of humanity. The holographic display changed. It now showed human faces, Kyungho Han, Yoonji, thousands of others who had died in suicide runs. Then it showed humans who had survived, Do-hyun, Ji-won, Minji, Taewon. But we are doing something unprecedented, Sentha said. For the first time in our history, we are making this archive entry public. Any species, any being anywhere in the galaxy can access it, can read it, can learn from it. Gasps echoed through the communication channels. The Valari had never made their records publicly accessible. Their archives were sacred, private, seen only by Valari historians. We do this because humanity taught us something, Sentha explained. They taught us that some stories must be shared, that some sacrifices must be witnessed by all. That memory is not meant to be hoarded but celebrated. She looked directly at Commander Do-hyun. You saved 3 Valari that day. 3 lives. We said we owed you a debt. Now we pay it. Your species will never be forgotten. Not as long as stars burn. Not as long as the Valari remember. But Sentha wasn't finished. She gestured, and other species representatives stepped forward. One by one, they made announcements. A warrior species declared that every military academy would now teach human tactics. A peaceful species announced they were naming their new colony world Young-ho, in honor of the captain who died saving them. A merchant species revealed they were establishing scholarship funds for human children in every major university. On and on it went. 4,000 species, each one finding ways to honor humanity, to remember, to ensure that what humans had done would echo through time. Admiral Ji-won Song watched from her ship. She'd been promoted again. Fleet Admiral now, the highest rank in Earth's Navy. But titles felt meaningless. She'd traded them for the faces of her dead. Her communications officer approached quietly. "Admiral, you're receiving a personal message. From someone on the memorial station." Jiwan opened the message. It was from a Valari child, no more than 10 years old by their standards. The message was simple. "My grandmother was on the colony ship your captain saved. Thank you. I wouldn't exist without him. Without you. Without humans. I'll remember. I promise I'll always remember." Jiwan felt tears on her face again. She'd cried more in the past year than in her entire life before, but these tears were different. Not grief. Something else. Something she couldn't name. On Earth, Dr. Sun-Hee Kang worked in her laboratory. She hadn't stopped working. Couldn't stop. There were always more weapons to improve, more defenses to build. The Devourers might return someday. They had to be ready. But today, even she took a break. She watched the ceremony on her computer screen. Watched as species after species honored humanity. And for just a moment, she allowed herself to feel pride. They had done it. They had saved the galaxy. And the cost had been terrible, but the alternative had been extinction. Engineer Taewon Kim stood in front of a wall in Seoul. It was covered with photographs. Every human who had died in the battle had their picture here. The wall stretched for kilometers. Taewon walked slowly, looking at faces. So many young faces, so many people who would never come home. He found Captain Young-Ho Han's picture, stopped, placed his hand against it. "You were braver than me," Taewon whispered. "I wanted to go. Wanted to make that run. But Commander Park needed me on the ship." "You didn't hesitate. You just did it." The photograph didn't answer, but Taewon felt something loosen in his chest. Maybe it was okay that he'd survived. Maybe there was purpose in survival, too. Back at the memorial ceremony, Ambassador Hyejin spoke for Earth. Her words were broadcast across the galaxy. "We didn't seek glory," she said. "We didn't want war. We just wanted to do what was right. And what was right was standing between the darkness and everything we loved. Between death and life. Between the end and tomorrow." She paused, looking at the crystal sphere with its millions of names. "Our people died here. So many died. But they died so that others could live. So that children across 4,000 worlds could grow up. So that civilizations we'd never met could continue existing. That's not a tragedy. That's a choice. A choice to be human." The ceremony ended with light. Every ship activated their engines in sequence, creating a wave of brilliance that spread from the memorial to the edges of known space. It was visible from hundreds of light years away, a beacon, a promise, a memory made of light itself. 200 years later, a human child sat in a classroom on Earth. The child's name was Sora, and she was learning galactic history. Her teacher was Valari, part of the cultural exchange program that had existed since the war. "Today we learn about the Battle of the Devourers," the teacher said. Her voice had that musical quality all Valari possessed. "Can anyone tell me who fought in this battle?" Sora's hand shot up. "Everyone. All the species fought together." "Very good. And who led the tactical retreat that won the battle?" "Humans did. Admiral Jiwan Song," the teacher smiled. "Yes, your ancestors. Do you know what they're called now?" Sora nodded eagerly. "The guardian species, because we guard others. Because we sacrifice for others. Because that's what humans do. And why do we remember this battle? Because," Sora thought carefully, "because it shows that being strong isn't about weapons or technology. It's about choosing to protect others even when it's hard, even when it costs everything." The teacher's smile grew wider. "Perfect. You understand. That's why I teach here, so far from my homeworld, because humans saved my ancestors, and we promised to never forget." During break, Sora looked up at the sky. She knew that somewhere up there the memorial still floated, still held the names of millions who died, still reminded the galaxy of the day humanity chose sacrifice over survival. Her grandfather had fought in that battle. He'd survived, but he never talked about it much. When Sora asked him once why humans had been so brave, he'd looked at her with old, tired eyes. "We weren't brave," he'd said. "We were terrified. But we were more afraid of letting others die than we were of dying ourselves. That's not bravery. That's just being human." Sora didn't fully understand that, not yet. But someday she would. Commander Do-hyun Park was an old man now. He lived in a quiet house by the ocean far from the cities.